Bond Finance Director Ben Watkins, State University System of Florida Chancellor Ray Rodriguez, University of Florida Interim President Dr. Don Landry, and Florida's Education Commissioner, our fearless Stasi Kamoutzis, is here. And we're here to announce results from our audits of state universities. At the beginning of the year, we said we are going to do DOGE type things, although we really refer to it as our FAFO audits, Florida Agency for Fiscal Accountability or Fiscal Oversight, and we've done a lot on local governments, and that's made a lot of news because, quite frankly, you've seen real significant overspending. People are paying more in property tax because their property values are going up, and rather than reducing property taxes and returning those to the taxpayer, the excess, they're spending it. And that's happening really across the state. And it's happening not just in blue counties, but in red counties as well. So our CFO, Blaise Ngolia, has done a good job of really focusing on that and has been a real bulldog on it. And we're happy to do that. And that's obviously going to lead into doing the ballot initiative for property tax for homestead Floridians. And basically, I think what Blaise is showing, and this is just one part of it, there's going to be a lot more that comes out on local government. The reality is, Florida, we have the #1 economy in the country 3 years in a row. We've got a massive tax base of people who aren't Florida residents. So shouldn't we want them to pay and our people to have relief? I mean, we have the ability to do it. So we're going to work on all that, and you'll see that. But we said, yeah, we're going to do local government. We're also going to do the state institutions, and the university system is a big part of that. And so Ben Watkins, Ben does our bond finance department. So you've heard, some of you who've watched these things have heard me say, if you take all the debt the state of Florida has accumulated, the taxpayer-supported debt over our 180-year history, just since I've been governor, by the end of this fiscal year, we will have paid off about half of that, just under my tenure. And part of it... And part of it is just we made the decision, as we've been running surpluses, so we've maxed out our rainy day fund. We tripled it, and then now we're not allowed to put any more money into it. We've done things like moving Florida forward. I mean, you look at different projects, Howard Franklin, I-275 expansion in Pinellas. We've got all this stuff in Central Florida, everything. Billions and billions that needs to be done. So we're doing that, massive tax cuts, all these other things. But one of the things that we saw an opportunity to do was to accelerate the repayment of this state debt. So Ben and his people go in, they'll get these bonds at a discount, buy them, retire them, and then guess what? It saves interest costs over, a significant period of time sometimes. And so we've probably saved billions of dollars by doing the early retirement of state debt, and I think it's really been a model for the country to be able to do it. So Florida, we have the lowest per capita state debt in the country, and if you as a Florida resident, if somehow we just said, oh, we have to pay it all off, the rest of it off, it'd be between $400 and $500 per Floridian. If the federal government asked you as an American to pay off the U.S. debt, it'd be about 110 grand per person. So we're just saying, and ours is going down and theirs is going up, and that's part of the reason we have a AAA credit rating. So there's a great story there. But when we asked Ben to lead the doging of the state universities, and so he's going to have a report about what he found. But before we really get into that, we've worked very hard at making sure these institutions are focused on the traditional mission of what a university should be doing, that they're pursuing truth, not trying to impose ideology, that they have high standards, that we're elevating merit over some of these ideological fads, and that ultimately every student that comes through here is prepared to be a citizen of our republic, and especially on the eve of America 250, it's important that that is also a mission of these universities. And so we've had to do a lot of different things to make sure that we could go in that direction. One of the things we've done is now all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be terminated for poor performance. And that's something that's really important because I think what you find, and this is something even apart from kind of the ideological agenda that we've seen, you talk to people that know a lot about higher education, they will say unproductive tenured faculty, it's like a dead weight cost, very costly for the university, doesn't produce value. And so, you need to teach, you need to do research, you need to produce, and those performance metrics are very, very important. And so, there have been a lot of unproductive that have already been filtered out over the last couple years, but we also paired that with giving money to the universities, and the presidents can bring in people, they pay them, the boards of trustees, all these other things. We reject this idea. Sometimes these faculty will say, oh, the university is shared governance, that somehow they should be running. But no, it's not shared governance. The university is run by the president and the people in the administration. They're responsible to a board of trustees. That board is responsible to a board of governors, and ultimately they're responsible to the elected officials, both funding from the legislature and then the governor. And we have to set the mission for these schools that are consistent with the best interests of the state of Florida, and that is given the best value to taxpayers in Florida. I know a lot of people don't want to be underwriting neo-Marxism. It's just not what they signed up for in Florida. And so, there's a lot that goes in, but I think this is something that's really important. And they've brought in incredible faculty in all these universities. I mean, it's been really, really exciting. We just had, I know USF Medical School just got this great ranking for evidence-based medicine. And, it's important because medicine has gone totally off the rails in some of these elite schools where you'll have like a woke Hippocratic oath that these kids are doing. And you're just thinking, and Don Landry knows this because he had to navigate that at Columbia when he was there. It's just, it's nuts. And so, USF, they're really focusing on, the evidence matters, the facts matters, and all that. So I think it's been great. We just had new college rankings in the Wall Street Journal that used methodology that I think a lot of people want. So it's like free speech, merit over ideology, all the things that I think most people want universities to be. And so they ranked universities on those criteria, and they ranked #1 in the country on really those good criteria, the University of Florida. And Florida State was #7 on that criteria. And I think that is something that is really, really significant because, higher education's interesting because, you have some of these, Harvard was founded in the 1630s, right? Yale 1701. So these are universities that are older than the United States of America. And so they've built up over many centuries, a lot of prestige. That's just kind of the nature of it. And I think what the Wall Street Journal and the City Journal rankings are looking, okay, well, that's legacy. That's really built off things that have happened for many decades, if not centuries. But what about now? How are you showing a commitment to free speech? How are you showing, a commitment to rigorous debate? How are you showing a commitment to high standards and all this? And the fact that, we had two, and really, they didn't even rank every school. They just took kind of like what they thought were like some of the top. But I guarantee you we'd have other of our state universities that would rank very highly on that metric as well. So the tenure reform, the recruiting good faculty, paying them money to produce results, I think has been really, really significant. We've also done things like make sure the curriculum is in good order. So when I became governor, it was required for every student in the universities to do sociology. And, look, if you want to take it, but that should not be, you require sociology, but you don't require U.S. history or knowing things about this country. So the Board of Governors said sociology is not a requirement. There was a lot of hooting and hollering about that, and I think that's instructive because all they're saying is you don't have to take it. It's still offered, and I think the reason there was hooting and hollering is because sociology is one of those ways, where they can use that to smuggle in the ideology. And when you say you don't have to take it, they know a lot of students probably won't take it because they'd rather do things that are different. You know, you look at also things like gender studies, these ideological studies departments. You know, honestly, I mean, our universities are the cheapest in the country, about $6,300 in state. But like if you're having to go to like a private or out of state or whatever, those degrees are not going to pay off for you. And it's just not, so we should not be indulging. We should be focusing on the things that really matter. So we've done a lot on streamlining curriculum. You know, they've sued us on some stuff, but I think you're going to see a lot more on that. And I think that's going to be really good as well. We also have upheld a commitment to good behavior, law and order on the campuses. That wasn't something that was upheld at some of these places around the country in recent years, and they really let the inmates run the asylum. And it's a very simple concept. You can have views and express views, but the minute your conduct contravenes, university expectations or regulations, you need to be held accountable. You can't just violate and then just have a slap on the wrist, because that just continues it. So we've seen students who have whose conduct was outside of what was acceptable be held accountable throughout our university system, and the result has been you didn't see our university campuses turn into a Columbia or some of the other things that you saw in recent years. And so we're very happy for that. But obviously the people that are involved in the universities know, if they tried to mimic some of these other schools that really had big problems, that their tenures would be short-lived in those positions themselves. And so there's a lot of incentive to do the right thing and do what folks want. So that's a great background of everything we're doing. Now, I'm going to let Ben talk about the spending of the universities and kind of what he found on some of those things. I mean, I would say that there was actually a lot of positive that were found. I think there's also things where there's room for improvement, and Ben will go in more on that. But one of the things we also have asked our folks, our teams, to look at are some policy items that universities are doing. And one of the things that I think has gotten a lot of attention in recent months and even years that needs to be is the use of some of these foreign visas like H-1B visas. This is supposed to be, this is, when people pitch this, say, it's like specialized knowledge. We've got to bring all these people who just, Americans aren't willing to do it, or they don't have we got to do this. And that's the narrative, right? It turns out, these tech companies will fire Americans and hire H-1B at a discount. And they're basically indentured servants because they go in, and they're almost all from one country. They come, they have these brokers that do this, that make a fortune off this with arbitrage. They bring them in, and then they're indentured to the company. So the company can basically pay them low, and they say, no, they got to do this. You have to prove that there's no Americans. They will put an ad in like the classified section of a news. Nobody reads these physical newspapers. We were hiring for here. Like, nobody knows this, right? So it's all become a total scam. And so we've said this is a big problem anyways, nationwide with all this. But then we looked at it in the universities. And if you think about it, they're saying, well, this is so specialized, we can't find Americans to do it. Well, shouldn't universities be able to find it? I mean, like, literally, what you need to run your university, you have it within your capacity to produce those people. So here's what we found on some of the things. You got H-1B computer application coordinators from China, assistant professors from China, public policy professor, China. Why do we need to bring someone China to talk about public policy? Assistant swim coach from Spain on an H-1B visa. Are you kidding me? We can't produce an assistant swim coach in this country? Bioanalytical core director from Poland. A psychologist and counselor from the United Kingdom. Athletic department graphic designer from Canada on an H-1B visa. Athletics operations and communications coordinator, Trinidad and Tobago. Manager of Marketing and Communications from Albania. Data analyst. We can't produce a data analyst at our universities. Coastal Research Specialist from China. Assistant Director of Assessment Accreditation. Why are we bringing people in to assess our accreditation on an H-1B visa? We can't do that with our own people. Assistant Professor of Data Science. We can't produce that. I thought that that was something that a lot of our schools are focused on. Computer Science Assistant. Environmental Engineering Assistant. Research in the Center of Power Systems. Wuhan, China. Research Faculty and Education Leadership Policy Studies. Assistant Professor of Philosophy, H-1B visa. Assistant Professors in Math and Engineering from China. Again, why aren't we producing math and engineering folks who can do this? We've got hundreds of thousands of people in our state university system. Clinical Assistant Professor from the West Bank. Clinical Assistant Professor from supposed Palestine. Why are they? Is that just social justice that they're doing? And that's University of Florida. Agriculture Food Scientist from Argentina. Assistant Professor of Engineering from Russia. All these different things that you look at and you're just like, I don't understand. How is that specialized knowledge that only someone from these places can do? A $40,000 job working as an assistant at the athletic department, that's an abuse of this whole idea. And so we saw it, we've seen how it's going on, and my view is especially when you see in the news all these people being laid off by Amazon, UPS, all these companies, we need to make sure our citizens here in Florida are first in line for job opportunities. And if there's things that the universities need that somehow they just can't find in Florida, to me, of all employers, they are the ones that would be most responsible for why they can't find what they need. I mean, we're churning out a lot of people. This should not be that difficult to do. So I think and look, some of this stuff is muscle memory. Some of this stuff is, I guess there's probably reasons why it ends up being this way. But, I think it's a poor reflection on some of the decisions that some of these universities have made, that they're trying to say they need an H-1B visa to do some of these jobs. And clearly some of them are not even close. So this is not like you're taking an Einstein and you're bringing an Einstein from a foreign country to teach all these great things. First of all, you wouldn't even use an H-1B visa for that. You would use an O visa for that. So these are not like super, sure. This is basically, in some respects, cheap labor that they're bringing in to try to save money. So we saw the results of that. We thought a lot of it was, quite frankly, troubling and disappointing. And so I'm directing today the Florida Board of Governors to pull the plug on the use of these H-1B visas in our universities. We can do it with our residents in Florida or with Americans. And if we can't do it, then, man, we need to really look deeply about what is going on with this situation. 2, grants. We've worked really from the day that the Trump administration took office on analyzing the grants that are used for things under the Biden administration. I mean, I don't think you could get money to fix a pothole unless you had a DEI component to it. I mean, it was like that persuasive. Now, we rejected infrastructure money because they were making us do some of this stuff, and we said we're not going to do it. And so we sent back money, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. I know we did over $1 billion in all the different programs that we sent back to DOGE. That was when Elon was there. But we have either repurposed or canceled more than $33 million in DEI-related grants that were made to our public universities. Now, we banned DEI in 2023 with the legislature passing it. Some of those things may have been authorized in the earlier stages of Biden. I don't know. I don't know why they got it. I don't know why they were doing it. Some of them will tell you, the universities, that they had to add DEI to an application, otherwise they would get on money. But be that as it may, we're rejecting that. So it's either being repurposed or simply sent back. And you've seen just a lot of different things. I mean, like, for example, $1.3 million for mobilizing physics teachers to promote inclusive and communal classroom cultures through everyday actions. You know, that's just slop, right? I mean, that's political slop that they're trying to do. And there's so many more that we're doing on all these different things. And so doing that, they've identified a lot. Florida DOGE has also identified over $10.6 million in grants within the Florida college system that we're working with federal and institutional partners to repurpose, or if we can't, then to cancel. An example of what some of our folks done, it's basically hundreds of thousands of dollars focusing on race, ethnicity in different things. And it's like, you know, as a Florida resident, if you're at a school, you should have the options to do whatever is available, and it shouldn't depend on race or ethnicity. And so that stuff is going to be dealt with very quickly. So I appreciate what's been done. I think that this is enlightening. Like I said, I think Ben's presentation, unless he found something new since the last time we talked, is going to be, you know, our universities are doing a lot of really good things in terms of how they're handling finances. But there's always going to be room for improvement. We're laying down the gauntlet on the H-1B visas. We've laid down the gauntlet now for many months on the woke grants, and that's going to continue. We're going to ferret out all of those. And now looking forward to what we can do on the fiscal side to improve what we've done. We've put a lot of money into the universities. Like, there's never been a time in the history of the state of Florida compared to my tenure as governor, where we've done more to financially support our state university and state college system. And I think that that's important. And part of the reason we do it is because we want to keep tuition low and keep it to where it is, lowest in the country. I think it's good that you can work hard as a Florida student, do well, end up going into one of our state universities, and really not have to take out one penny of student loans. You can work part-time jobs to be able to handle the tuition and some of the living expenses. And obviously, if you're a good enough student to get into schools like UF, USF, chances are you can qualify for the Bright Futures. I mean, we do hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on that every year. And I think it's something that's been very, very positive for a lot of people. But being able to graduate without that, I saw something, they said 70% of students from public universities across the country, you know, once they get to 10 years, then the investment is paid off vis-a-vis people that were in high school and went into the workforce. And I'm just thinking, it's taking 10 years to pay off, and then 30% it doesn't even pay off. That is not, even for public schools, which are you know, theoretically cheaper. Florida, I mean, you know, I think it pays off very quickly, and what we're doing with the curriculum to streamline and do all this other stuff, it's really, really positive. We also just announced we've started speech and debate up again in Florida. When I became governor, we had very little of this going on. Now all 67 counties have a program. We've got hundreds and hundreds of schools that are involved. We do a state championship every year, and this year in the spring is going to be a new college in Sarasota. But we've been able to now, for the winner, award a $50,000 scholarship. For the second place, $25,000 scholarship. Third and fourth place each get $15,000, and the remaining quarterfinalists get $10,000 scholarships. And so I think you're going to end up having 600-700 plus students that are going to be participating in that. I think Stasi Kamutsis is going to live stream this because people want to see the kids debate, and so we're going to have that up there, and I think it'll be really, really good. So that, but just think about it, $50,000 scholarship. If you get that from most universities, it's like, okay, that pays tuition for a private university for 1 year, maybe. $50,000 in State University of Florida as a Florida resident, that pays for your tuition for 4 years and then some. You could go to graduate school and still probably, you know, not exhaust fully, or at least part of it. So that's really generous given how affordable our university offerings are, and I was glad to be able to make that announcement earlier this week with the commissioner and with new college president Richard Corcoran. So all in all, there's a lot of great things that are happening. We want to keep the ball rolling. You know, don't ask me about the football stuff. It's beyond my control. I have a lot of people that are very interested in some of that, and I appreciate it because, you know, I am too. But we're going to make sure that we continue going in a good direction. Okay, so we'll have Ben Watkins come up, and then we'll hear from some of our other folks. So Ben.
Thank you, Governor. So how do you follow that, right? So I'm here to tell you, and this is not news to those that pay attention, Florida has the best system for higher education in the country by delivering high-quality education to students at the lowest cost to students and for Florida's families. So that's a remarkable accomplishment and something to be proud of. And Chancellor Rodriguez is going to tell you more about that. That wasn't my job. Also, Eric Soskin, when the governor asked us to do this, my friend Eric Soskin's taken the DEI ESG part, and I thought, well, what can we do to be helpful in this initiative in terms of looking at universities and how they manage themselves financially? And when we met with the rating agencies a month or so, a couple of weeks ago, to review the state, part of which is to review the state's budget and highlight the governor's budget priorities like clean water, transportation, education, including higher education, it's a really easy story to tell because of the significant state funding that the state has used to support the universities in their operations and the results delivered by the universities. It's really something to be proud of and sets Florida apart in a big way nationally. What's not talked about so much and not as well known is that Florida is also a leader in higher education reform. Florida is the first and only state, to my knowledge, to implement performance-based funding to drive results with a focus on student success like graduation rates and job placement. And the success of this approach has been remarkable. Florida universities have responded by emphasizing the importance of student outcomes to take advantage of the financial incentives provided by performance-based funding and have delivered phenomenal results. So when we did performance-based funding, when the legislature embraced it and it was implemented 10 years ago, it was going to be the end of academia as we know it in Florida. And I don't think anyone would argue today that the results have not been extraordinarily positive. So the governor's executive order provided the opportunity for us to evaluate the efficiencies and how universities operate from a financial perspective. So it's our form of DEI. It's DEI of a different flavor. It's a DeSantis efficiency initiative. And what we've done in our DOGE work is to evaluate the efficiencies of how public universities operate and prepare an efficiency study, and we'll be presenting that to the Board of Governors next week here at USF, be back. And it's not rocket science. It basically takes fundamental financial management practices and applies them to universities. We do it at the state level. It should be done at the university levels. The results under the governor's leadership in terms of the governor's financial position and how we sit today relative to other states is off the charts. And it's recognized by the rating agencies with 3 AAA ratings. And that's all a testament to the fiscal prudence and the conservative nature with which the governor and the legislature have managed the state. The efficiency study simply uses data from 3 sources: audited financial statements, student data, and personnel information from the universities to calculate ratios or performance metrics related to efficiency and productivity. The efficiency study is simply an analytical approach to reviewing university operations from a financial management perspective. It's not rocket science. It can be easily done and should be done. The efficiency study confirms a lot of what we know, which as the governor has alluded to, about the success of Florida universities in delivering education to our kids, and what Chancellor Rodriguez is going to talk about. Doing the efficiency study also assesses and evaluates of how universities are being managed financially. Doing this will provide radical transparency to how universities are using nearly $4 billion of state funds that are being invested and expended by the universities each and every year. And the report is also going to recognize that the Board of Governors incorporates selected performance metrics into criteria used for performance funding, incentivizing universities to strive for efficiency in how they manage their institutions. This is simply measurable metrics. It's the way the rest of the world lives, and it's how universities need to think about themselves in terms of managing their operations as enterprises. This approach will also provide the university, importantly, the university boards of trustees with information and data to enhance their oversight of universities and enable them to ensure that the resources that they're stewarding will be devoted to university priorities that are strategically important to their institutions. Finally, we're recommending that the universities use this analytical framework for evaluating universities as enterprise to do a more granular look at their operations on a college by college, operational unit by operational unit on each of their campuses. Governor, I want to thank you for your leadership, the privilege to serve, and the awesome opportunity to use our expertise to help shape the future of higher education in the state, so that Florida can continue to lead this critically important industry for the state. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Okay, our University System Chancellor, Ray Rodriguez.
Thank you, Governor. And it's great to be here on the campus of USF, one of our preeminent institutions and our latest member to join the AAAU. You know, when you look at our higher education system here in Florida, a number of things jump out. The first are the rankings. The governor mentioned we're in the #1 state for higher education, as reported by U.S. News and World Report, and we've been ranked #1 since 2017. In the most recent rankings, which came out last month, of institutions, we have 7 of our 12 universities ranked in the top 100 public institutions in the country. That puts us at #2 behind California, which is a much larger state and has many more universities than we do. When you look at our system, you see that we're affordable, and we've had both Ben and the governor mention that. Our tuitions has not increased since 2013, and it's roughly half of what the national tuition is for a public four-year university. And that's worthy of applause. And I make this illustration as often as I can because I think it's important. I believe we're the last public university system in the country where a student can leave at the end of spring semester. Spring commencement ends. If you're a freshman, sophomore, or junior, you get the summer off. If you spend that summer working a minimum wage job for 40 hours a week, at the end of summer, when it's time to begin the fall semester, you will have earned enough money to pay both your fall and spring tuition and fees here in the state of Florida. That's important because it means you can still work your way through college here in Florida. I don't know that other states can say that without taking on a substantial amount of debt. And in Florida, nearly 80% of our in-state undergraduate students have no federal student loans. They're doing it through either payment, Bright Futures, or other scholarships that they've earned. That is remarkable when you compare our Florida system to other states where the ratio is 65% of their enrolled students have a student loan through the federal government. And it's great that we're accessible, and it's great that we're affordable, but what's more important are what are the results? And if you look at the results of our system, we're the #1 state in four-year graduation rate. When students enroll in Florida, they graduate. And that's great, but what are they doing with the degree when they have it? In Florida, we know, because we measure this, and we're the only state that measures this, 75% of our graduates 1 year out are employed or continuing their education. And they're making good wages because the median wage of our graduates is $51,000, substantially higher than those who only have a high school diploma. So I say all that to set the table for this. Our system's doing really well. If you want to use an analogy, we're at the top of the mountain. But we're not just standing at the top of the mountain enjoying the view. The Board of Governors has said, find a bigger mountain to climb and raise the bar. So in January, we adopted our updated strategic plan. Our team has been tasked by the board to go back and improve our performance-based funding metrics by revising the metrics and raising the benchmarks of what defines success. We are working on that, and that will be a topic of our next meeting. We also know that our success has been fueled by the fact we've had a champion in Governor DeSantis who has insisted on holding the line on tuition for our in-state students. We've had champions in our legislature who have generously funded us through appropriations. But the fact is, economies ebb and flow. And we know the projections are that the economy is going to get tighter. We've seen the budget last year get tighter than the previous budget. It's been communicated to expect another belt tightening this session. We have a responsibility to become more efficient and to tighten our belts in recognition of what is occurring in the state as a whole. And so the report from Ben and his team, the DOGE report, is going to be a very valuable tool for us to identify the efficiencies that we can find. And I'm going to tell you, Ben was limited because this was a press conference, and we have a limited amount of time. We have a 25-page presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that Ben and his team have provided, and that's just the short version. He has a report. How many pages is the report, Ben?
Don't know yet.
45 pages, single-spaced, 12-point font that has gone through and done the analysis that has identified areas where we can find efficiency. We will use those tools to become more efficient and to tighten our belt so that we can continue to deliver the results to the Florida taxpayers that you expect from our state university system. Governor, thank you for your support. Ben, thank you for the work of your team, and we look forward to seeing the universities and our Board of Governors have the opportunity to review it, analyze it, and determine how we can apply it. Thank you.
Next, when you're seeing folks come and go from university systems, it's just interesting. And so University of Florida, when they appointed Dr. Don Landry, as the interim president recently, they put out a thing on his, bio, and it's like, he shows up at Columbia Medical School. He's 24 years old, and, which is not necessarily unusual. That's probably where most of these guys were at the time. But he had already gotten a PhD in biochemistry from Harvard by 24, and he's rolling into medical school, does that, and he was led the Columbia Medical School, was the physician, the chief physician at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital for many, many years, but has a really, really strong list of professional accomplishments, both in his field, but then also being somebody who has really worked to cultivate the type of vision that we have in Florida for higher education that is focused on pursuing truth and upholding high standards and having rigorous curriculum. And that's why I think, he's hit the ground running at the University of Florida, and we're proud to have him here today. So come on up, Don.
It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak. I'm in Florida right now because of a conversation with the governor. He was telling me about the University of Florida. The amazing thing is he began by telling me about the tuition of about approximately $6,500 a year. I had no idea that this was going on. And his assessment of it was, we want the young people of this state to get a superb quality education, and then we want them to flourish. We want them to thrive. The idea that you can graduate from college, 90% of our students graduate debt-free, unburdened by debt, unburdened by fear, able to make the decisions that seize opportunity, the boldness that's required to succeed in life. The students coming out of our system have that because of the vision of the governor, of the legislature, to keep all of our costs down and to give people the chance to succeed. Student success, that's what this place is all about. I was just taken by this, and it was only after I arrived that I began to understand the ethos of land-grant institution. UF is one of those, founded 1853. It's a bond between an institution and the state, and therefore an institution and the representatives of the state. That bond is to serve the needs of the people of the state. We have an agricultural operation. It's active in all 67 counties of the state. We use it as a base of operations. We're teaching, learning to the youngsters. We're planning to stick some engineering into it, to give engineering concepts in late grade school, early high school. These are the kinds of things that you don't see at many, many, many universities throughout this country. But you see it here. You see it throughout this state. You see it at the University of Florida. Now, the governor, others have mentioned just how well funded we are, and we are well funded. But to one to whom much is given, the more is expected. He expects a lot. He wants us to be clearly in the top 5, arguably the best. No mean feat. It's not an aspiration for the weak of heart, either in the representative government or in the universities that would pick up that challenge and try and push it forward. So much has happened, and it happened before my arrival. I've only been here less than 2 months. But I've seen so much. There's such a foundation. There's such an opportunity. There's simply no question that this state is going to achieve its ambitions. It's not an accident that it is the #1 state for higher education in this country. It is not an accident that it has 7 institutions in the top 100 under the old grading system, the old evaluation system. Okay? Not to mention incredible results with new ones that look less at legacy factors and more at what was the value instilled. Okay? How much was there a return on investment? And that return on investment is assessed. It's assessed for departments, what professions, what range of professions are you prepared for? And all of those things indicate that we are doing spectacularly well. Not that we can't do better, but we are doing extremely well. The Doge has been mentioned. We invite the Doge. You can't achieve ambitions, aspirations for greatness without understanding that resources are finite and efficiency is essential. We embrace that efficiency. H-1B was mentioned. I was ever so gently called out, or at least my institution was. It's a complex issue. We can chat. But to the extent that I would say that we have used it at UF mainly to take the unusual, we only have 2% international students at UF, okay? But we educate them like we educate everybody else. And occasionally, some bright light might be good enough for the faculty. And then we will try and retain the person into whom we've invested so much, okay? But that's kind of the exception that proves the rule. I know from personal experience at another institution and experience with colleagues at other institutions. And we know that H-1B is not handled in a pristine fashion, even in academia, certainly not in business. So we endorse the review of H-1B. We are conducting our own now. The last thing I'd like to mention is that, in biomedical science, if you are not an exceptional institution practicing at the absolutely limits of the standard of care, you can't really conduct research because you wouldn't be certain whether your research results have been in some sense disturbed by substandard elements of the care the patient is receiving. It just places a limit on what you can do in your, clinical trial, your N of 1 experiment on a given patient. The governor has a vision that the state of Florida is really the laboratory for the nation. Here we are seeing what is possible. It is actually possible to keep tuition down. It is possible to get return on investment. All these things are possible, and others are noticing. Okay? It's the aspiration for leadership. It's the aspiration that the state has. It's the aspiration that the University of Florida has and other universities in the system have. So we join the governor in celebrating today all the things that have been accomplished in the realm of education. We look forward to putting our shoulders to the wheel and making further improvements as we know there must be. Thank you, Governor.
All right, great job. All right, and then, our Commissioner of Education is on the Florida Board of Governors. He oversees the state college system. Is a part of the decision-making on the university system as a member of the Board of Governors, but he is the leader of that, but he's also obviously very active in K-12. Hillsborough County, putting these books, very inappropriate stuff in these young grades against Florida standards and law, and he blows the whistle on that. And he actually goes, when you have some of these school board members, that are behaving very poorly, he will go to the school board meeting in like Alachua County, the belly of the beast, and he will do Leon County, and he will, lay down the truth. And so I think it's been very refreshing to see somebody committed to upholding. Like, you guys voted for folks over many years to be in the legislature, governor, all this stuff. We've instituted policies, and you have these little dots around the state that think somehow that they're just immune from the outcome of the people voting on this stuff and us going through that's not the way it works. And so he's been really strong on that, and I've appreciated watching him do his work. So Stassi, come on up.
Well, thank you so much, Governor. It's great to be here at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Great to be in Hillsborough County for some good news for a change. I want to talk about the colleges because they're sort of the little guy in the institution. We heard some great facts about the universities, and they do a phenomenal job, and I love serving in this capacity as both a member of the Board of Governors, but also as a Commissioner of Education who advocates for our great 28 who are in the Florida College System institution, who serve nearly 680,000 students across the state. Our institutions play a vital role in Florida's workforce development by providing high-quality programs that prepare students for high-demand careers. During the 24-25 academic year, over 135,000 degrees, certificates, and industry certifications were provided for students in the college system, and graduates earn competitive wages. At Associates of Science level, they're making more than $60,000 upon 1 year of graduation, and if they're achieving their bachelor's, it's more than $70,000 within a year after graduation. That is a huge, huge deal. I was a prosecutor after law school down in Miami. I remember making $40,000 as I started with this massive law school debt. So to hear that our students are graduating from the college system without debt and they're making these salaries starting off is just remarkable. This governor, in his initial days in office, made workforce education a #1 priority, saying we are going to be #1 by 2030, and we have not slowed down in seeking to achieve that mission. But it is a great testament as well to the 28 presidents at our state colleges who each and every day seek to achieve that mission. Incredibly, even with open enrollment, our state colleges operate at a fraction of the costs of the state universities. And under Governor DeSantis' leadership, the Florida College System institutions continue to see significant growth, serving more students, employers, and families across the state. With respect to Florida's economy, we know that it depends on innovation and technical talent, which we produce right here in Florida at our college system institutions as well as our universities. Governor DeSantis has prioritized workforce education at our colleges specifically to train and upskill workers. and whether it's in technology, healthcare, or in the engineering fields. He has remained steadfast in his commitment to ensuring highly skilled Floridians have access to competitive, high-paying careers. And thanks to this governor cracking down on Florida's H-1B visas, we will ensure that Americans are filling out our workforce. The Florida Department of Education and the Florida college system applauds the governor's efforts to this unprecedented accountability. We look forward to continuing to work together because we know that together we can ensure that Florida's economy continues to grow through workforce development and the recruitment of the right talent who meet critical workforce needs in our state. So thank you, and God bless you.
Well, so I'm excited. Obviously, you know, we've got more work to do, but you know, I wouldn't trade places with any other state on higher education, not by a long shot. And we're going to continue leading the way. I think it's been great with the new administration under President Donald Trump to have a partner in D.C., the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. She's embraced what we've led the effort. We've got other states on overhauling accreditation. You know, people wonder why universities do. Well, sometimes the accreditors are telling you. No one knows who these accreditors are. Nobody elected them to anything. They're just kind of these self-created entities. They get a stamp of, and now all of a sudden they're dictating things. And so we've had to go back and forth with that. So we're standing up a competing accreditor. And so it'll be things where all the things we want to see in a university, you better be doing those things or you're not going to get accredited. If you're straying, if you're trying to make your university run on the indoctrination type, well, then you're going to run into problems with our new accreditor. It's kind of been the opposite. Like if you went and did the game, then those accreditors would reward you. If you actually tried to reform, then the accreditors would penalize you. Now, we still do whatever we want and didn't let them call our bluff. But like it's refreshing, though, that they're encouraging us to do this because there's no way Biden's administration would have ever approved this. So we're going to do that. And I think you're going to have schools from Texas, you know, all the way to South Carolina and Florida, of course, that are going to be part of this new accreditation system, which is going to be, and that's just for kind of the university, the undergrad. And I know medical accreditation needs an overhaul. Law accreditation needs an overhaul. I mean, the American Bar Association, like whatever it was historically, you know, is an activist left organization. And you know what? They have a right to be an activist left organization, but they don't have a right to sit in judgment over law schools and hold the law school's fate in their hands. No, no, no. It doesn't work that way. So there's a lot of work to do in those regards, and I'm just happy. And some of this stuff, I mean, you know, talking about higher ed accreditation, like, you know, that's not the most scintillating thing. Like if you're trying to generate headline or whatever, but like it needs to be done. It's hard work that needs attention, and being able to see these things through, that's how you ensure that you have healthy, well-performing institutions. And, you know, you can get superficial issues right, but if the underlying institution has a lot of rot in it, like we've seen around the country and some of these others, then you're basically ultimately fighting a losing battle. So attention to these details, making sure we're getting into kind of the nitty gritty so that Florida not only can say, oh, we're #1 for public higher education, yeah, look to it, but 25 years from now, you can have confidence to know that these are going to be high-performing institutions. I mean, you know, we've got kindergarten, second, third grade. So, you know, we're not 25, but like, you know, we're kind of down the way. Like, you know, I want to know that they can go and they're going to be great in 10, 15 years as well as being great today. And part of that is getting these other issues right. Okay, we got any questions back there? Nothing to comment on. Yep.
Yeah, Governor, regarding property tax reform, a couple weeks ago, House Republicans released a package of proposed constitutional amendments on that. You last week said it's not approvable gains. House Speaker Perez came back and said, what about your plans? He says he reached out to you on that, and he hasn't heard back.
I've not talked to him about it at all. The reality is he's not been somebody that's been supportive of these efforts. Remember, last year we went through this. He wanted to do a tax cut for tourists and Canadians that would have really hurt our ability to do property tax, even in a temporary, but certainly in a constitutional situation. So he's not been an ally on this issue at all. This is going to be on the ballot in November of 2026. So it's over a year away. We're working very hard with folks. You got to get the language right. You got to get the numbers. You got to get all that. So that will happen. It doesn't need to be produced today, and it won't be produced today because we want to do it right. And so, for example, I've said, Florida resident, you have a home, you're homesteaded, you should own it, you shouldn't be taxed, that shouldn't be an ATM for the local government. Like, that's the vision that we want to see. But, there's issues with that because people say, yeah, I love it, but then are you going to have half of New York City move to Florida well, no, we don't really want that, right? I mean, we want to benefit our current residents. We're not trying to incent people to move and take advantage of this. So you got to structure it in a way that is not going to invite something that I think a lot of our folks, probably aren't going to be, too happy about. There's also other things about, we have most of the property tax revenue that local government collects by far is non-homesteaded residential taxes and commercial taxes. And like I've said, we're going to focus on the homesteaded properties. We're doing all the Doge. We're not done with the FAFO and the Doge because we want to be able to show, they'll say, well, you've had if they can't tax the homesteads, then they're not going to be able to do it. We say, wait a minute. Why has your budget gone up 50% in 4 years? Actually, if you just went back to 2020, you could do it and then some. And I think what's happened is they've gotten more revenue and then they're spending way in excess of inflation, population growth, and all that other stuff. So there are a lot of things that we want to make sure we get right. And then also just practically, one of the things, the legislature's put a lot of stuff on the ballot in recent years, and a lot of it have failed. Why? Because they have some lawyer on staff draft something that nobody can understand. And I'm like reading this stuff, and like I do this every day, and I'm like, what does this mean? So you can't do that. You have to you have to have good, clear language so that voters see, one, obviously the benefit that they're going to get as a Florida homeowner, but also I think one of the things we're interested in doing is making sure all that other tax revenue for property, for the non-homestead and the commercial, that all of that is not wasted either. That should only go to education and first responders and law enforcement. It shouldn't go to DEI and these other things. So we have a way to actually protect those budgets, I think, in a way that could, so we want to maybe put something in there on that and all these other things. So there's a lot that's going on, but just understand what they're trying to do in the Florida House. They put out a bunch of proposals. They're all milquetoast. There's not one proposal that people would get excited about. Not one. So they're total half measures, which is not what people are asking for. People want to be bold. So just that right there is a problem. But what they say is, no, we're just going to put it all, let the people decide. We'll put 5 on the ballot and let the people decide. If they do that, first of all, the Senate's not going to do that. But if that were to be done, that is a way you kill any type of getting property tax reform. Because different voters are going to read different things, and none of them are going to end up getting 60%. So if you're absolutely, 100%. You have to have one amendment. It's got to be very clearly written and give people a chance to vote for it. What you don't do is put 5 on there that, first of all, people probably, because they're going to be written in ways that are not going to be clear, and so there's going to create confusion on the ballot. You want to be able to say, vote yes on 1 or 2, whatever number it is, yes, yes, yes on that. That's what you have to do. So you only can do 1. So if anybody tells you that it's better to just put 5 proposals on the ballot, they are, look, I disagree with it substantively, obviously, because I want to see something done. Like, I'm not just spinning my wheels here. Like, I don't need to go out and talk about this if it ain't going to get done. The whole idea is let's get something done. I think it's hard to get 60%. I think this is popular. I think a lot of people want to see relief, especially with how expensive everything's gotten over the last 5 or 6 years, from groceries to home price, everything. And so substantively, I think it's really important. But when I see people, politicians rolling out, oh, we're going to put 5 proposals on, it offends me because they think you're stupid enough for them to tell you, oh, no, we're supportive of you. We put stuff on the ballot. We tried. They can't think you're that stupid, right? They physically can't. So it offends me that they think somehow they could get away with this by doing it. So you do one proposal, right? One proposal. And we've been working very hard on this for months. There's a lot of different things, and you got to structure it right and everything like that. But I can tell you, we need to do one, and we need to do something bolder than what those proposals were. Did those Democrats write a letter to Chuck Schumer asking him to stop filibustering the spending? Come on. Anybody else back there? Okay, thank you. You guys take care. Bye-bye.